everyone, TJ here, and I want to change things up and ask Mac to join me on a duo here. And what we'd like to talk about is an initiative that went into effect just this year. It was voted on last year and unfortunately passed in the state of Washington. And our subscriber in Washington is fully aware of this. Initiative 1639, and it has a major impact on gun ownership, and I'd like to include one of the main opponents to this bill, an Army veteran who is doing what he can to combat this idiocy. First, I'd like to discuss the, I'll call them bullet points of the bill. And something interesting about this initiative is they came to redefine assault rifle. And in the past, they would say assault rifle, which, the gun guys would say, assault rifles are automatic machine guns, and what we're buying in the gun stores are semi-automatics, one shot with one pull of the trigger. So what they've done is they've redefined the term to semi-automatic assault rifle. And what they're talking about is firearms they'll be like gas operated or recoil operated, and that basically means you're using the energy of the shot itself, the firing of the bullet, we'll say, and you're using the energy produced by that to operate the action of that firearm. You got the firing, unlocking, extracting, ejecting, cocking, feeding, chambering, locking. So, with one pull of the trigger, if the firearm does all that with the energy produced by the firing of the cartridge, that is now in the definition of what they call semi-automatic assault rifle. And Initiative 1639 is treating these semi-automatic assault rifles. They're subjecting them to the same laws as a handgun. And by that it means you can't sell these to anyone under 21. That went into effect this past January, if my research is correct. Also in Initiative 1631, and some of this went into effect just this past July, you got to take classes covering basic firearm safety, secure gun storage, safety of children and firearms, suicide prevention, safe handling, state and federal laws. These classes are mandatory and must be taken within the last 5 years, I believe, of the purchase, when you're making the purchase. Local law enforcement, and they need to produce a letter, as if you get it like from your mom or dad or something. Produce a letter stating you have passed the National Instant Criminal Background Check, which is the same background check they make the dealers do. So you're actually going to be subjected to this twice, and then you're going to have a 10 business day waiting period. And a lot of times I refer to it, it's been nicknamed the cooling off period. Let's see, of course, this is going to cost the consumer or the purchaser probably an additional $25 for the background check. And anyone from outside the state of Washington would not be able to buy these in the state of Washington. I have some thoughts, but I'll defer to Mac here, and then I'll throw in my thoughts.
Well, you make me think of a couple of questions that come to mind first. First off, it sounds like a money grab. More classes, more fees, more taxes. I'm sure ammo taxes are to follow. And what's next? The revolver is going to be called a single-shot assault pistol? I mean, you can add assault to anything. An assault baseball bat.
See, my thoughts are, and when you look at the classes that you have to take, item by item, it's not a bad idea. And whenever I'm talking to someone, whenever I have someone who is very new or unfamiliar with firearms and they say they're thinking about getting into it, I literally beg and plead with them, please let me get you to the range, because you will need training. This is a serious matter. And I guess from my own selfish perspective, I don't need another goofball going out there and mucking it up for me. You
Or
know,
shooting you.
and so you know, as far as some of these classes, I'm in a moral dilemma here because I can't say that it's not a bad idea, but you know, it's mandatory, and now you got one more thing that the nanny state's making you do, and I guess that's the bitter pill there for me.
And the thing we're going to learn from history is it's going to expand from there.
Yeah.
Once everyone
Oh, yeah.
complies, then it'll be another thing and another thing and another thing.
All right, so this was voted on last year and it passed, and I'd like to discuss the demographic makeup of the state of Washington. I was stationed at Fort Lewis for 2.5 years, so I got to see some of this firsthand. But you have the Cascade Mountain region that runs from north to south. Cascade Mountain region is where you have the Mount Rainier is the highest mountain in the continental U.S., but we used to refer to it as BRA. Baker, Rainier, Adams, St. Helens. Those are the high points of the Cascades. And the reason why the Cascades is, it's a clear mark in that to the west of it, and we always call the left coast or the west coast the left coast, to the west of the Cascades, it's just so densely populated with liberals. Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia, the whole Puget Sound area. All it takes is a whale getting lost, a baby whale getting lost up into the or down into the Puget Sound, and all the liberals are out there trying to get the thing back out to into the Pacific Ocean. But it's just so densely populated by the liberals, and that's the problem. You know, it's so densely populated on the west side of the Cascades. They are numerically superior to the east side of the Cascades, which is, and I've got to tell you, it's almost like two different states there. You got west of the Cascades, which is like they get so much rain, it's like a dense rainforest, and then to the east of the Cascades, it's a completely different environment, and in the demographic sense, much more conservative. Unfortunately, the conservatives are outnumbered by the liberals to the west. The governor and the state attorney general, what they've done is because you got some law enforcement saying to the east, primarily to the east, well, we're not going to enforce it, and I'm going to talk about one guy in particular who's come to the forefront of it. But because so many sheriffs and that have said, well, we're not going to enforce it, the state governor and attorney general, they've done a couple things which are very disturbing here. First, they've threatened the dealers with legal action, and so they're going to make the dealers enforce what the sheriffs said they won't. They've also threatened to send in the state police and the ATF. And the reason why that is so concerning to me is, you know, in a previous video we talked about another civil war. Well, that leads right to that scenario is, all right, you're going to bring in the state police and the ATF, and, you know, you risk it going down. Thoughts so far?
I don't have anything to add to that at the moment.
All right. What I'd like to talk about now is a man by the name of Loren Culp, okay? And he's an ex-military guy, and he's from a very small town in Washington, but it's called Republic, Washington. He's an ex-Army guy, combat engineer. He was we kind of refer to it as Cold War veteran. So he was in the Army during Carter and Reagan presidencies, ex-drill sergeant. And the thing about drill sergeants is all us prior military guys, we will always remember our drill sergeant. Currently he is a police chief in the small rural town of Republic, Washington. It's located in the northeast corner of the state of Washington, and he appears to love dogs. He also has a pilot license to fly airplanes, which plays to his advantage. How is he taking on the state of Washington? Well, this past July, he filed as a Republican to run as governor for in the state of Washington. His campaign slogan is "Send common sense to Olympia." He admits this is an uphill battle, and some have referred to his effort as David and Goliath, but I would tell you we know who won that battle. He says he's hoping to, in some part, make this kind of a pushback effort, even though it's an uphill battle, whether or not he has any chances of winning. The very fact that he's doing this is driven by the whole Initiative 1639 idea that something's got to stop this nonsense. His beliefs: he believes that the Washington governor and attorney general have violated their oaths to uphold the Washington and United States Constitution. And I'd like to read Article 1, Section 24 from the Washington State Constitution involving firearms. It reads, "The right of the individual citizen to bear arms in defense of himself or the state shall not be impaired." Here in Michigan, and I'm just going to read Michigan's version of it, Article 1, Section 6 of the Michigan State Constitution. "Every person has the right to keep and bear arms for the defense of himself and the state." And the reason why I read that is because so many people want to argue the wording and the meanings of the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, and when you look at the Washington State Constitution, it couldn't be more clear as to the intent of gun ownership.
Even Michigan's.
Yeah, even
Pretty plain speak.
And the thing about Michigan was, I think it was rewritten like 30, 40 years ago. I forget the exact year, but the Michigan State Constitution is very recent. He's obviously a Second Amendment guy, believes in individual freedom and liberty, smaller government, lower taxes, and he is one of the he's one of the guys that have pretty much said his city, as small as it is going to be a Second Amendment sanctuary city, and I have some thoughts on the whole sanctuary city issue. You got any thoughts?
Yeah, well, I'm opposed to sanctuary cities, and I don't want to wade in the pool of hypocrisy and say that leftists are wrong for wanting to have sanctuary cities for illegals, and then but our sanctuary cities for guns is okay. Although the difference is we have a right to have our guns, they don't have a right to be here. That's pretty clear. But I don't like the snubbing of laws, if you want to use that term. I mean, what do we have next? Sanctuaries for pedophiles? I mean, where does it begin and end?
Well, and that's, I'm right there with you because, I'm not a fan of any jurisdiction snubbing the law. Here's the dilemma. The liberals are fine with sanctuary cities for illegal immigrants, even if they're of the criminal element. But the liberals will not abide Second Amendment sanctuary cities, going to their hypocrisy. And this just serves as another example of, I feel this is why you can't even compromise with these people. But in any event, a follow-up concern is you got these gutless Republicans. They're not willing to stand up to what's going on here, and that's as concerning to me as the liberals passing this stuff. And any final thoughts before I wrap up?
I'll say this about the Republican Party, and I don't call myself a Republican anymore for the reasons you just stated, is that they care about themselves and the next dinner party and the next free lobbyist lunch and so on and so forth. We have to look out for ourselves, and that's why we support President Trump, because he at least seems to be looking out for us.
Okay, well, that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Hopefully, with the help of an ex-drill sergeant, we can combat this. The left's insanity never seems ceasing. And as we say here at the Michigan Conservative Roundtable, be safe, watch your six, and don't tread on me.